Michael, let's set the scene.
Yeah.
I've only, well, we've chatted obviously before, but I've only met you a little while ago. So tell me, and indeed the viewers, a little bit about your early life, what it was like, and how you came to the Lord, etc. So just share a little bit on that for us, please.
Okay, will do. Like you say, I was born and bred in Ashington, and brought up by a very spiritual mother. My mother was a real prayer warrior. She's only 5 foot tall, but she's a
height
great.
doesn't matter.
No, she's a great height in prayer terms. She obviously, you know, prayed for me from the day I was conceived, but. I was brought up very much in a Pentecostal sort of church. We used to go to church every Sunday at least 4 times. I used to go to Sunday school in the morning, then on to chapel, and then back to chapel in the evening, and then on to the Pentecostal church later on the Sunday evening as well. My mother took me to see A. Allen.
Oh, right.
When I was about 3 years old. So I saw miracles and people speaking in tongues from a very, very early age. And I spent the first 14 years of my life as a Christian. And there was a turning point when I was about 4 and you know, did the usual things, and had quite a few sort of, you know, encounters with women and so on. And I eventually got married. You know, we had a pretty good marriage for a few years. And then I did something, I suppose my mother used to come and preach to me all of the time. Not preach, that's the wrong word. She used to challenge me a lot.
Right.
And every time she did that, obviously it was the Holy Spirit convicting me, so I would know, oops, you know, I've got to back away from this, and I would just challenge her.
And so you weren't going to church or anything in that period by now, it just left it all behind?
No, just left it behind.
Yeah.
Didn't want to know anything about church, didn't want to know anything about God, I just totally rejected him.
But your mother wouldn't let you?
My mother wouldn't let me, no, she just carried on praying. You know, then sort of a few years went on, and you know, things started to go wrong in my marriage and things like that. But I did something then which I knew would really hurt my mother. I think through trying to hurt my mother, I was also hurting God in a way. And I joined Freemasonry.
Right.
I did that in 1993, and my mother, you know, was not very happy about it and told me so. She tried to talk me out of it, but you know, I didn't want to listen. I was totally in rejection. I tried to say that, you know, this is my religion. You know, you've got to believe in God to go into this thing, so it must be okay.
Right. So what were the things that made you join? I mean, you have to be invited, don't you? You can't just say, "Hey, I'm going to join." So, so you obviously had somebody that invited you and got in. But what were the things that made you want to? Apart from, was it just rebelling against your mother, or were there some positive things that drew you at that point?
It was a lot of rebellion. You know, I have to be honest about that. But the other things as well is my father was in Freemasonry as well. And he had said quite a few years ago, when my mum and dad were going through the breakup, that he was going to make Masonry his religion. So what I did was I looked at how he was doing in Masonry, and he seemed to be having a great time, you know, many friends. So I saw the fun that he was having. So I thought, oh, well, that seems good to me. I was also struggling a bit with a couple of people at work who I thought if I joined Freemasonry, I might be able to climb up the ladder a bit as well, because I'd heard obviously of you know, sometimes if you can use it to your benefit. So I did that as well, and it was one Christmas morning, funnily enough, that my dad came around to a house, and I'd said to him, I'd like to join Freemasonry, is there any way you can get me in? Oh, well, there's a bit of a waiting list, son. So about a year and a half later was actually when I joined. So it was April 1993 when I joined, and went through the first degree, the second degree, the third degree. At the time, I remember people saying, you know, oh, we can't tell you anything about this because it'll spoil it for you, you know. And so there was some trepidation when I went in, but I was uncomfortable, I think, in the first 3 degrees. You know, it was... You
mean as you went through the ceremonies?
As I went through the ceremonies.
Because a lot of it's in darkness, isn't it?
Well, the first degree, you have a blindfold on, and you've got a cable to a rope hanging noose around your neck, and you go in to the point of a dagger when you go first through the door, which, you know, is a bit kind of...
heart palpitations at that point, as you think.
And, you know, I think I was sweating a lot by the time I got to the altar.
Yeah.
But after I came through the 3 degrees, you know, I suppose from that point I can really chart the time where my life started to spiral out of control. You know, I was out lots every week drinking, you know, because it was such a great sort of social thing. You know, once the ceremony was over, you could go downstairs into the bar and basically just drink as much as you wanted, you know, and have a meal and so on. And the general chit chat between the men was fun as well. And I was very much a social animal, you know, so I like to be out and about amongst people. So that's what I did. And but from that, you know, tragedy started to hit my family. You know, a close member of my family attempted suicide, and you know, there was a major miracle happened there, because my mum came and prayed for this person.
Right.
And you know, we were being told by the doctors that she was going to die, and yet that when the time came in the morning that, you know, that she was going to die, she actually was sitting up in the bed. The doctor came in and just did a double take. Couldn't believe it. Came and said, I was here to sign your death certificate this morning. And
how did that affect you? Because you'd left all that behind.
Yeah.
Your mother, you know, put it mildly, was a bit of a pest to you in that way, because she kept reminding you of where you'd been. Yeah, no offence, dear. But rightly so. And yet here she was in there with you, praying with you, and you saw answers to prayer.
Oh,
how did that affect you?
Absolute miracle. You know, it was just, I remember the time in the morning when the doctor said, you know, this person's going to go into fits and things like that. And that time came and passed, and there was just such a peace about the place. And I remember, I smoked at the time as well. I actually went outside and dawn was just starting to break. Right. And I came back in and there was just a little bit of light came onto the bed. And literally it was just that peace. You know, and I'd said a little prayer that night, you know, but I don't think I really had any intention of following it up at that time. Right. And I think also as well, it wasn't my time to come to come to the Lord. After that, obviously, after I witnessed that miracle, you know, we had a couple of years of real good stability within the marriage. I wasn't going out very much in Masonry at the time because I wasn't climbing the ladder. However, we then had, our son was born in 1996, and what a blessing that was. Still is. And, you know, from about that point onwards, you know, I started, because I wanted to progress in Masonry and I wanted to go into the Master's chair. So that meant you had to go out lots every week, right. 3 and 4 nights a week. So, of course, what I was doing was I was just going out, drinking, you know, getting up for work the next day, going back out the next night and so on. And that just really started to divide the family. And about 2 years before I went into the Master's chair, or the chair of King Solomon, as they call it.
And that's the head of the lodge.
That's the head of the lodge.
For people that don't understand.
Yes. Yeah. What happened then was that we had the final breakup of the marriage. Right. I then had an affair with someone I was working with, and it was just disaster after disaster. Within 5 months, I'd lost my. I then went into the senior warden, which was one step away from Master, right. And I just had more back problems again. The whole thing resurfaced. So
despite all these things going against you, you still had no thinking, hey, I better get out of Freemasonry. You just kept pushing on in and wanting to go further and further. Was it hoping that these things would be solved by getting further into Freemasonry, or just trying to obliterate them anyway?
I suppose hoping that they would be solved. You know, I mean, the Masons do tend to look after each other. You know, when people are sick, you know, you get people coming and visit you. They have a chaplain, right. You know, and a team of people who come and visit you in hospital and things like that. And you know, you've always got this thing. You know, you'll be looked after. Well, yes, that did happen to a certain degree. But what happened to me was, you know, I sunk so far into myself. I became my own dark cloud of depression, if you like. And but anyway, beyond that, I then went into the Master's chair and had a very successful year in the chair. I was out 4 and 5 nights a week. I don't know how I held down my new job at that time.
Because you were drinking, so alcohol became a problem too.
Dear me, such a problem. I mean, nothing, you know, a night would be sort of like between 8 and 10 pints of beer with bottles of whiskey, with bottles of wine and gin, and then drinking when I got home as well. Ooh. You know, so it was just a real mess. Yeah. You know, I had a very, very good job again by which time, manager of a big training company, and I had a company car. I had all the perks of a very good job, but I knew I was starting to feel, right, I haven't got this happiness now. I've not got any happiness whatsoever in my life. My son was always there, and that kept that kind of one light in my life, if you like.